What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for yet another Tottenham update to go through the last 24 hours of Tottenham news and rumours. Starting off with that Spurs rebuild once again, as James Ollie of ESPN says that Postecoglou wants to push on with the overhaul of his Tottenham squad, but is also realistic about the scale of change he can achieve in one window. Tottenham do have a degree of headroom within the Premier League profit and sustainability rules, though. A new striker and a central midfielder are amongst Postecoglou's priorities, with Conor Gallagher and Ivan Toney being the targets. And Fabrizio Romano says, basically just reaffirming what Paul O'Keefe said yesterday, saying that Tottenham will make a change in the summer. To as many as 10 players could leave the club. Emerson, Jed Spence, Rodon, Reguilon, Sessegnon, Højbjerg and Brian Hill are all potential departures. Spurs will sign several players too, with as many as 5 new additions this summer.
Yeah, I think the main thing about that update he said is that first line, in terms of Postecoglou is worried about the headway he can make in only one window. I think that's forever been the problem, isn't it? It's how much you can get done to put yourself in a position from going from one season to another, when you always got so much work to do. Can we put ourselves in a position where we can actually challenge for big things next season with all the work we've got to do with outgoings and incomings this season? That's always been the number one problem. It's always something we seem to suffer from every single year.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the question going into this summer. Can we get rid of can we shift the players that we need to shift so that we can really start to progress as a football club? And I hope we can, but I'm not liking that Ange is worried about the amount of work we've got to do.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Because like every season we end it with such big aspirations, saying these players need to leave, these players need to come in, and then these noises start coming out saying, oh, can we actually do the business all in one window? Does it need to be spread out over a couple of windows? Some even say, oh, there's not much. There's always on saying, oh, there's actually not that much money there, and we seem to be getting these kind of rumours every single year, which are very frustrating. But I'm just trying to look at how many we actually got out and got in last year. So obviously Kane, Winks, Sanchez, Dyer, Spence, Moura, Lloris, and then all the loan players as well.
Was just permanent?
Permanence, it was just 5, I think. Well, 4. Dyer, Sanchez, Winks and Kane. And
in terms of unwanted, it was only really
Lloris.
because Kane wasn't unwanted. So
yeah.
It was only really 3 unwanted players that we were able to shift.
Yeah.
And you know, is it going to be easier this summer? Because a lot of the players that we're going to want to sell this summer, we wanted to sell last.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
A lot of them are going into their final year of their contract, which is more positive, because I do think that the club will be open to like maybe just getting their wages off the bill for their final year and then just releasing them at the end of that.
Yeah, I really hope so, because it's about time we start putting the football side of it first, in terms of not caring as much about how much we're making from these transfers and how much, and not caring about making too much of a loss, and just caring about how can we get this football club and the squad into a way that we can progress. And it doesn't mean hanging on to certain players.
Yeah, I don't think the club have an option. They don't really have a leg to stand on in that case, because if they're not getting the bids and only loan moves are coming in, there's only one option but to get the wages off the bill, and that is saving money.
I hope so.
Riccardo Calafiori, let's talk about him. Tutto Juve say that Tottenham really like Calafiori. Bologna are hoping to raise up to 30 million euros through his sale, but really value the defender at 25 million euros. Spurs will have to convince the player, though, as he is keen to remain in Serie A. Juventus are pushing for an agreement before the Euros starts. We saw last night Bologna against Juventus. He scored 2 goals. I think the game finished 3-3 in the end, didn't it? Bologna went 3-0 up.
The funny thing is, first of all, his 2 goals were, first of all, the first one was a really great finish on his left foot, like really with his instep, curled it into the top corner. I think it fell to him for like a corner or something, but a really nice finish. But the second one, I don't know if you saw the second one, he takes it like a 30-goal-a-season striker. He goes through on goal. The keeper goes down early. He does a little dink over the keeper with his right foot. I'm like, wow, this guy's got some sort of composure.
The boy can play, man. I'm telling you, the boy can play.
The funny thing is, it was 3-0 on 75 minutes.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
He goes off on 75.
Oh, really? Was that right?
He goes off on, and Juve make it 3-1 on 76.
Wow.
So literally the minute he goes off, they got back in the game.
And it finished 3-3 in the end, yeah?
Finished 3-3, so it clearly made a big difference having Calafiori off the pitch. I, for one, I'm super excited about the prospect of him coming. I think he's so suited to how we play. I think the quality of him as well on the ball is there for all to see. I still think that obviously he's quite young, still quite raw, but I think he's had a stellar season at Bologna. And I think you're talking about that kind of price. I'm still shocked. because I think for me, this guy could potentially be a £50 million player. So
Wow.
I think just get him for 25 million would be a really good price.
Yeah, it would be. But obviously, Bologna make Champions League for the first time. Thiago Motta, the Bologna manager, is going over to Juventus. Juventus are interested in Calafiori, so it does seem a bit inevitable.
It does.
I just hope it's not. Because this report does say that he wants to stay in Serie A as well.
If that's the case, it's going to be a lot harder to get him. But, Paratici has his ways.
The less said about that one, the better. Let's move on and let's talk about Trevor Chalobah of Chelsea. Graham Bailey said that Tottenham have inquired about signing Chelsea centre-back Trevor Chalobah. Spurs want to sign another central defender this summer, and Chelsea have told him they wish to sell him. A deal would cost around £30 million. And when you're talking about Chalobah for £30 million or Calafiori for €30 million, there's only one winner there for me. But if Calafiori is unattainable, would you accept Chalobah in as a backup centre-back last year? Because it was rumoured, wasn't it, at the back end of the transfer window last summer that we were after him.
What I like about Chalobah, again, is his utility. He can play full-back, he can play centre-back, and can also play midfield. So he does have
To what kind of level, though?
Yeah, but I mean, I think to be fair to him, I've got to give him credit where credit's due. He came in near the end of the season this season, has played really well in Chelsea's winning run. I think he started most of the games. So obviously scored against Spurs as well. Really good header that was. So I do think there's a good player there. Whether he's a player who can take us on a notch. He's not going to improve the first team, put it that way. But could he be a squad filler potentially for a squad filler for 25 million? I mean, in this day and age, that price for a squad filler is probably
30 million.
I mean, it's 30s. 25-30 for a squad filler if you're a Premier League club, that's pretty much the going rate. Now the problem is when you've got players like Calafiori available for 25 and you're going outside the market, outside the Premier League, that's the market I'll be looking at. I think you can probably get a Chalobah quality player from another league for half the price, probably.
Yeah,
so
10-15 million.
So you are paying a premium for probably getting him from a Premier League club, and also because he's English. And also,
we need English players.
And also maybe a bit of a rivalry premium as well. So
we need English players.
But that's also a thing. So there's a balancing act. Do you pay the premium because we need English players, or do you look at Chalobah and think probably get that kind of player for less money from another league? That's the decision the club got to make.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not completely mad. I don't think he's I think he's quite a good player.
Doesn't excite you though, does it?
No, it doesn't excite
Calafiori is an exciting purchase.
I think Calafiori on the ball is another level to Chalobah.
But when you're looking at signing Calafiori for this squad, right? He just makes total sense because you don't need to sign another player. But if you sign Chalobah, maybe you do need to sign a left back to understudy a doggy, because you don't really want Chalobah stepping in when a doggy's injured. But fair enough, maybe Van der Ven
covers Porro.
Van der Ven can go in there. Porro, yeah, he does cover Porro. But you look at Calafiori. If you have Calafiori, Van der Ven, and a doggy, that's the left side sorted.
Yeah,
absolutely sorted.
True.
Let's go and talk about Richarlison. ESPN saying Tottenham is split internally on whether to sell Richarlison should a significant bid arrive from a Saudi Arabian club, which is interesting to hear. We've been hearing that Richarlison could be very much on the move this summer. He has been touted in by Paul O'Keefe and various other journalists saying that we will be listening to offers for him. But ESPN saying that they're split internally whether they want to let him leave or not. In my opinion, I think if a big offer comes in, you have to accept it. I think we should be setting our sights a bit higher at the moment.
Yeah, I think I can understand why there's a bit of a split, because you read out the striker options, the other day, and as much as there are some good strikers there, are any of them a very clear improvement or like a massive improvement on what Richarlison could offer? We know he's a striker who can score Premier League goals. He did it this season even for Spurs. He's done it previously for Everton. This season, if he had more starts, if he'd stayed injury free, which he is a player who generally hasn't had too many injury problems in his previously. If he does stay injury free, could he even be a 20 goal a season striker? I think potentially. I think there's an argument to say he could be, considering what he's shown this season. You look at the strikers that we've been linked with. They're all good, and there's an argument to say a lot of them are an improvement on Richarlison, but how much are they going to cost compared to how much we're going to get for Richarlison? So are we going to have to pay way more money for a minor improvement, essentially? That's maybe what the internal argument is for keeping Richarlison, when we've got a striker here right now who can score Premier League goals. But I guess the caveat to that is will we ever kick on with a player like Richarlison leading the line? Is his all-round game ever going to be good enough where he's not going to be in a position where he's sometimes hurting us with his overall game, with his bad touch, when he's got his back to goal, he can't keep the ball, he gives it away too much, that kind of stuff, and sometimes can have erratic finishing when he's got too much time to think about things. Essentially, when he's not first time finishing, he can sometimes be erratic. So there's that argument as well. So I can understand the split. I would argue I would probably sell him if we get the right offer for him. If we get at least our money back, I think I would sell him and go for a striker who has a better all-round game than Richarlison. But I do understand the conflict.
I think he's a good player, but I don't know if you can trust him to be your starting out-and-out striker week in, week out. I think he's too up and down. You saw last season under Conte, 1 goal. This year, yeah, he's got better, but they have all come in maybe like what you'd say is a purple patch for the season. There's no kind of signal to me. There's no evidence that he can do it over the course of a whole season and get that many goals. There really isn't. I know he's had his problem with injuries this year, and that's another issue which we didn't talk about. What I want to see from Richarlison is for him to be a competition striker instead of us telling him he's our out-and-out striker. So if we were to keep him, I still think another one needs to come in to maybe fight him for that position instead of if that means Son going out to the left wing. Mm-hmm. I don't know what their plan is for Son, but it is, if you're going to believe all the rumours in the press and what everyone's saying, it does assume that he is going to be moving back out to the left wing next season, and that's the preferred option for him. So if Richarlison's going to stay, I still think we need a striker to combat him there.
Yeah, just you have to keep in mind, if you do sell him, you are selling a potential 20-goal a season striker, in my opinion. So,
let's talk about Emerson Royal. We brought you the news that he is of interest of Bayern Munich and several other clubs. But Florian Plettenberg says that Emerson Royal was loosely discussed by people at Bayern in the back in January when they were looking for a right back. But the Brazilian is not a hot topic for the club at the moment.
So I think I had discussions when what about this Emerson guy? Nah. That sounds like a loose discussion to me, I think, from the Bayern Munich hierarchy. I mean, I was shocked when I heard that Bayern were potentially interested in him.
You were shocked when they were asked about Dyer as well.
But what I think the difference between him and Dyer is actually quite good on the ball. He's actually quite a good ball-playing centre-back compared to like the other, like Upamecano and maybe even Kim Min-jae. Like if you look at Dyer's passing ability, he's actually got quite a good passing ability due to his time in midfield. So I can understand it a bit more because obviously they're going to be playing in a league where they're dominating possession all the time, and they might not need Dyer to be that good with his runs in behind if they're going to have the ball 90% of the time. So I kind of understood it slightly. I didn't think he would ever be starting week in, week out, especially in the semi-final of the Champions League, but that shows what I know. But Emerson, surely if you're Bayern Munich, I look at their fullbacks. Kimmich plays there, Mazraoui plays there sometimes. Like these are players who are a lot better on the ball than Emerson. If you're putting Emerson in there, I just can't see a scenario where he isn't out the door within a year.
Imagine going from Kimmich, Mazraoui, Pavard, all these players. Even, yeah. Imagine going from those 3 players to Emerson.
I know. I mean, shocking. I mean, I'd be very, very annoyed if I was.
But to be fair, we did say the same. Like, imagine starting Dyer over De Ligt or Upamecano or Kim Min-jae.
It's absolutely right, and he's done very, very well. But look, I think Dyer's done really well, and I want to give him all the credit because he's gone in there and he's got a starting spot and he's really impressed. But if Tuchel's leaving, is he really going to be the flavour of the month for the new manager? I don't think so, but we'll see.
Yeah. Let's talk about Alejo Veliz. This is an interesting one. In Spanish newspapers, Quique Sanchez Flores has been heavily critiqued for his treatment of Tottenham loanee Alejo Veliz. The newspaper explains that the manager, who is set to depart this summer, used Veliz to send a message to those above him. Flores was systematically ignored. Has systematically ignored Alejo Veliz in the last few months, using the Tottenham man as a way to bite back at the club's sporting management, who he's been in a long-term disagreement with. So basically, he's been using Alejo Veliz as a pawn for his war against the hierarchy at Sevilla, which is
disgusting.
It's shocking. It's absolutely shocking to use a young boy on loan, on a 6-month loan, where he was promised first-team football, wasn't he? And he's been given nothing of he's hardly been having minutes off the bench. Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting to treat him like that.
and essentially he's wasted 6 months of his career, and he might as well have sat home, twiddled his thumbs, and now he would have been just as well off as what he did now. So it's a massive shame. It's a massive shame that Spurs, when they're chatting to Sevilla, they didn't chat to the manager and see if he actually wanted him. So I think there's a bit of due diligence there from Tottenham's side. And clearly, if the manager didn't want him, then Tottenham must not have spoken to him before, because why would he in January say, yeah, I'll take him, and then treat him like this and essentially use him as a way to attack the board? He must have maybe they only spoke to the sporting director or something, and they signed off with it without the manager's permission or something like that.
I mean, that's probably what the kind of beef is between Quique Flores and the board, right? They're signing players above his back. That must be one of the situations.
Yeah, but Spurs, if I'm sending my player out on loan to a club, surely I want to get assurances from the guy who's in charge of actually selecting the team, that you're interested in selecting him. You know what I mean? Not just a sporting director, because a sporting director obviously wants to bring in a player, but he's not potentially the one who's going to be selecting. He's not the one selecting the team, essentially. That's going to be the manager. So you want assurances from the manager that because
Tottenham are assuming that the sporting director and the manager are aligned.
But if you're a sporting director, right, you're making signings, but not necessarily just for the short term, because you're going to be making signings regardless of what manager's in charge, right? Your job is to find players and whatnot. But if the manager gets sacked, but you're still going to be in a job, right? So you're focusing on the long term. So regardless of if you're a player sending you're a team sending your player on loan for 6 months, right? You're not going to be interested on the guy who's looking for the long term. You should be speaking to the guy who's going to be picking the team for the next 6 months, not a guy who's got long-term interest in that club. So the fact they didn't check with the manager that this is the kind of guy he wants to be playing, I think Tottenham have to take some blame for that as well.
Yeah,
if that's what happened.
I do think the most blame does go with the club, in terms of the blame has got to go with the sporting director, because the sporting director's got to check with the manager if he wants this player or not. They need to be aligned within a football club. Correct. Every sporting director and manager needs to be aligned. Yeah, Spurs could have done a bit more research into it, as to maybe find out the situations, find out if the manager wants him.
I mean, it's not hard.
But what you need to be aligned, as a sporting director and a manager need to be aligned. That's got to be the first and foremost thing.
I agree, and Sevilla are a mess, but them being a mess isn't our problem. Our problem is, will Veliz get game time? And checking with the guy...
Well, clearly is our problem.
Yeah, I mean, but checking with the guy who's going to be picking the team for the next 6 months surely is the main priority than checking with the sporting director who's going to be focused on what players long term are going to be fitting into this team for Sevilla.
There was too many assumptions on Spurs' part. Yeah. I think that's what it was. And anyway, let's finish off. Gareth Southgate has named his provisional squad for the Euros, and James Maddison is in the squad. There was a bit of conversation, wasn't there, before saying, is Maddison going to be there? Is he not?
Some people reported no, and he ended up being in there.
Yeah, because he has had a drop-off at the end of the season. I think we can all say that's safe to say. But he has been called up, and will he make the end cut after the provisions are made?
Well, looking at the... if you look at the squad, and you look, obviously there's 33-man squad, 7 players have to be cut. I have to admit, I'm looking at the squad, and I definitely think he's one of the names who's at risk of being cut for sure, just based on who's definitely going to be there. And it's then you take off some of the names like, Quansah and people like that who probably won't make it. But after that, it gets really, really difficult. And definitely, I think Maddison is going to have a really strong showing in those England friendlies just to make sure, because I think at the moment, his name is definitely not one of the names that's nailed on. He has to make sure that he performs in those in the training camp and in those friendlies, just to put it into Southgate's mind. But to be fair to Maddison, in the last international break, who did they play? Brazil. He came off the bench and he had a really good cameo, got an assist in the last minute. So I'm sure that'll still be in Southgate's mind when selecting the squad.
And he has had a bit of an uptick in form in the last couple of games as well.
Yeah. So, but I do think he can't take it easy when it comes to those friendlies. He's got to be on top of his game.
Yeah. So that's that. That is your Tottenham update for today. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts regarding all the news stories we brought to you today. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on you Spurs.